You ever wonder what Eminem's place in hip hop really is? Sit tight.
Books, rhymes, and life.
Hey, welcome to Books, Rhymes, and Life, the best show on writing and hip hop in America where male basketball players no longer play defense. I'm your man, Chad, and with me, as always, is the master of disaster, the man who is internationally known, nationally loved, and locally cherished, Big Absoloot. BA, what is good with you this evening?
All good in the hood, man. I can't complain. Can't complain. How about yourself?
I got no complaints for anybody, man. Nobody wants to hear them anyway.
Facts.
All right. So this is a question that we hear a lot, and it's an interesting question. And there is a reason that this question is so interesting and so fun to talk about. We're going to save that till the end. So if you follow the chapters and you want to immediately get to what we're going to talk about, that'll be at the end. Just skip right to that chapter. That's fine. Let's start out. Like, there are a lot that we can debate and some things that are not all that debatable when it comes to Eminem. Let's start with the first category, lyrical skill. I have said on this show, and I've said repeatedly, that I am not necessarily I'm not necessarily as big of an M fan as a lot of people are, or as most people would expect a white hip hop fan to be. I liked him. I'll tell you what, like, I was rapping when Eminem came out, so I was a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit jealous that that was the first white rapper that blew up, you know? I like what he does, but I'm going on record what I think about his content, what he chooses to talk about. If I put that to the side, lyrical skill, I don't think I can debate that he's in the top 10 at the very least, and I say very least at the top 10. Top 5, probably. I'd hear an argument for top 3, but lyrical skill, you tell me, man. I mean, is there much he can't do when it comes to lyrics?
No. And I say no aggressively because I've never seen another rapper poke fun at being as good of a rapper as he is. Lyrically, musically. He chooses to do things at his own expense just to prove how good he can rhyme, downgrading and degrading him. You know, I went on record, we talked about him when we reviewed his album a few months back, and there was a bar in his second album, which is my favorite Eminem album. It's a song called I Never Knew. And he says, read up on how I used to get beat up, Pete on, be on free lunch and change school every 3 months. Like, as Joe, as a bar setup, is that I don't think I'd have told that. Like, there's just some things I think I'd have held. But that's the pure genius of him. He is I've thrown the word around. Some people, he's a savant, but in a very, the artist, I know you would know, the artist that cut his ear off.
Van Gogh.
Yeah, he's a savant in a very Van Gogh like manner. He does it in a way that punishes him, I believe, to get it out of him. Like he
It's cathartic.
at times,
He's releasing it.
Yeah, at times he needs the fire to get it all out. And at times I think he is just lyrically at war with himself.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about the content before. There are some things that, and I've said this about a lot of rappers, like a lot of people try to tell me that Ether is the best diss track ever. And I disagree with that because I just feel like I'm sorry, well, that's another topic. But I guess being an editor and a writer and having worked in publishing and with books and writing for so long, when you tell me that somebody is a savant writer and then they slip up and use those, 7th grade rhymes in there, which everybody does, I hit them harder for it. I hit you harder for it because I say you're better than that. There are certain rappers that I love, and I'll name one here. Paul Wall is another rapper that I like, but I do not expect lyrical genius from Paul Wall. And that is not that's not to slight Paul Wall in any way whatsoever, because he's dope. I love what he does. He stays in his lane.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times just when the content for Eminem, but the lyrical skill, I cannot doubt. So let's move over to song production, because this might be an area where It's been a little bit more wavy. While his lyricism has been consistent, it's probably been a line drive all the way through his career. The song production has wavered. Now he did have his addiction era when he was, had the problems with the pills, and we all know what happens to music during your addiction era. So that you can kind of excuse a little bit, at least there's a reason behind that. Some of the song production, and I guess this is the big question I'll ask. To me, if I go out to list in all of his albums, if I just go to pick out all the bangers, bangers he's got, there are less than I would expect when I start to write them down.
Total albums, yeah, I could see
On
that.
on all of his albums, I think I could take all of the bangers out of all of his albums and make one complete album with it of just straight bangers. And that might be putting it a little bit, that might be a little bit too
Yeah.
strong for some people, but that's the way I feel. Like Stan was obviously up there. I'll give him High by Name Is because that was his branding song. He's got Monster, I Need a Doctor. There are several other songs. Lose Yourself. He's a Grammy winner. There are several other songs that are just straight up bangers that you can listen to all the time. But what do you think about his song production?
I think you're right. I think they're outside of the Marshall Mathers LP, and I've said this on record myself. I don't believe there's another no skip Eminem album. I believe there are several worth the purchase Eminem album, but I don't believe that there's another no skip Eminem album. And I am a very big Eminem fan. I believe he's a victim. Eminem's a victim, right? I believe he's a victim of the machine, and the machine being the record industry. I believe his career would be the skills the same, and this might be a cop out, but I believe his career would have been completely different had he not been a white rapper, because
Yeah, we'll get to
the
that at the
dollar
end.
the dollar sign attached to the marketing value of how his albums are produced, I believe, are the good and the bad of the production value of his albums. I
Yeah.
believe that there are several songs that are made to attack a certain demographic of relevancy, a certain demographic financially, a certain demographic to draw streams, and then a certain demographic for the culture. And I believe that's literally how every album he has is made. And it's as his albums go up, and like you said, you can excuse the relapse and the recovery series of albums, because by that time he was out of control in his own personal life. But like, you could literally chop his albums into a four. Like I said, this little section for here, this little section for here, little section for here, little section for here. I agree with you 100% that conceptually the content has a lot, not a lot, but several, we'll use several lackluster pockets, but I believe most of those pockets are purposeful. So the real hip hop fan in us dislikes them tremendously. Like it angers or it upsets the real hip hop fan in us.
Yeah, I want to say that too to all of y'all out there who listen to me, who probably think I'm the most critical one out of the three of us whenever we talk. I do it from a good place, and when I say
Mhm.
that, I'm not overly critical on everybody. I just mentioned Paul Wall. Like, I don't break out Paul Wall's lyrics and look at them online and read them like I do some of like I would comment. I don't do that because I let you tell me how to take you. You tell me what direction you want your career to go in, what lane you want to fill, and then I judge you based on what lane you want to fill.
Mm.
But I think that's a good point you brought up about how curated his albums are, because I think that's a good word to use to say that he curates it to make sure that there's something in there because he's got several audiences he needs to appease. Let's move. This is somewhat the same, but a different, and I think a good question. If we're going to put him, if people want to put him in the God tier in rap, then we're putting you up against guys like Rakim, like Black Thought. I'm just gonna throw out names like Biggie, Tupac, Method Man, Jadakiss, Nas, KRS, Big Daddy Kane. Like, we are throwing your name up there with those guys. How does his catalog stack up against them?
it's weird because
LL, I forgot LL.
oh yeah, it's weird when you pose it that way. Because on one hand, if you look at several of the God tier artists that we mentioned, you know, excluding maybe J and L, Eminem sits in a weird place because a lot of the other God tier artists have a hip hop cultural God tiered catalog, but not a commercial one. If that makes sense. Hip hop's Eminem sits in a weird spot because he sits in a spot like J, like L, album wise, sales wise, but he sits in the other side, or he doesn't quite sit on the other side. If that makes sense. So he kind of
Yes.
sits in a weird middle spot. Like he has individually, he has several songs that fit over there with the Black Thoughts and the Rakims. He just did a song with LL, the Murdergram Deuce, which is, first of all, the fact that LL chose that song to let him get on lets you know his opinion of him. And I guess that's kind of where I get head scratched about his place, is because I think, and y'all, I know I claim to be a low budget historian of hip hop because I got this salt and pepper, right? But I think out of all the names that we listed, with the exception of KRS-One, every other one of them publicly has praised him as a lyricist, has praised him lyrically.
Yeah,
So when you,
Rakim had a great quote about him that I will bring up when we get to his place in history.
so when you sit with the gods and you get praised by the gods, you sit, but if this was Greek mythology, he'd be like Artemis. You know, like he'd be a god, Russian.
More
He
like
would all the,
Achilles, like Achilles was half God. He was half God.
right. He wouldn't, you'd be like, wait, you the god of what again? Like what you do? Wait, like you do? Oh yeah. Oh, okay. You know, man, like he would be like the 13th apostle Rufus. Like he'd be a dude that might be an apostle, and you'd be like, wait, it was 13 of them. Oh, okay, cool. God. Rufus, is it? Like he fit where you're supposed to go. And he
Yeah.
fits in that mold, but his place is very unique in that
Well,
space. We'll just use that.
yeah, and the next category, I don't think, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about here other than just naming things. Like his impact, he's had a large impact on the game. The amount of rappers that he inspired that came after him, the Royce the 5 9s, J. Cole's, those guys, I mean, all of the guys that mention his name, like Hobson, those guys, he inspired a lot of folks. He brought 50 Cent to a national audience, which if you've never heard the album that 50 Cent had before he did Get Rich or Die Trying, you need to go get that one too. But anyway, he brought 50 Cent to the world. You know, they tried to bring Rakim over there on the West Coast, but that didn't work out because of, you know, what they wanted Rakim to do. But he's made his impact. I don't think there's a doubt that he made his impact. And he got, in one beneficial way to hip hop, he got people who didn't listen to hip hop to listen to a little more hip hop. You know, there were a lot of people that I knew, like I've always been into it, but there were a lot of other white people that I knew that didn't listen to hip hop, that just because of the racial factor decided, yeah, I'll listen to Eminem. And the ones who were more open-minded gradually moved more into hip hop and found other rappers that they liked. So
Mhm.
that was good for him in a sense. Like, what do you see his impact?
I'm along those same lines. I believe that his impact is twofold because he is literally his own yin and yang. I believe that in his first album, they didn't know what to do with him. He was an experiment. He was a white rapper that they were going to try to market to the culture unbiasedly. We're just going to put you out there and see what we get. And then the numbers came back and they were like, interesting. Black people must don't know you're white yet. So now let's try to do differently. He put himself in a good pocket. But reason why I say in two different ways is his impact on other MCs, his impact with his features with other MCs, heavy hitters, bringing his crew with him, D12, and like you said, his impact with G Unit and Brave 50 and those guys, and all of that's great. I think he cut his teeth the most in being as fluid of a cultural historian as he is. He immerses himself and never allows people to disrespect his homage, his notoriety, and his knowledge of the culture. Right?
Well, that's him showing respect for the game. Like you and I have talked about this because I've said this, I've talked with other editors about this just for an analogy. Like sometimes as editors, we get manuscripts from people who have never written a book, which is fine. Everybody has to start with their first book, but they've done no research into the craft of writing. And it feels a little disrespectful, not to me, but it feels disrespectful to the craft. And to get into hip hop and not understand it would be so disrespectful to the culture, and you would be a culture vulture making money
Yeah.
off something you didn't understand. And he definitely took care of that because I've listened to him talk. He even understands the history of the progression of lyrics, like of how rhyme styles progressed. Like when he talks about what Rakim did, being that first rapper who really worked with the multisyllabic rhyme schemes a lot. And then talking about, oh, this guy with his ins and outs and when that started and how LL was the first to do this. Like he knows all of that. And being a
Mhm.
student of the game, being a student of the game works two ways. One, I think it makes other people respect you because they see that you care about what you're not just here to make money. You care about this.
Right.
And it makes you a better rapper too. I want to go to place in history in the last part because this is the most fun to talk about or the most interesting to talk about. And I don't have an answer for this question because I'll pose it to you this way. What Rakim's quote was he said, if Eminem were black, he'd be Muhammad Ali. And that made me think because I thought that was a really sharp quote because Rakim is a very smart man. And Rakim doesn't, especially with words, Rakim does not say things to just say them. And that was a phrase that needed unpacking for me. And as I unpacked it, what I came up with was that his being white is a double-edged sword for him.
Mhm.
Definitely one of the main reasons we're having this discussion about him right now, but also one of the main reasons that I can't say that he is the best lyricist ever. At the same time, his whiteness works in that way. It's worked to help him and it's worked to hurt him. And he's talked about that in his songs too. Because I feel like if Eminem were black, there are already guys who do what he does. And we would automatically put him with them, and the conversation would be completely different than what it is right now.
Right.
Because if he were black, then he would be right there with Black Thought, Rakim, and KRS, everybody else that we named on that list. He would be mixed in with them and he wouldn't stand out because of his white. So I think that's the reason we're having the conversation.
Yeah.
But also to unfortunately for him, it's also the reason why I can't put him at the top of it either. So I
Yeah.
wanted to just
Uh,
just let that out and see what you thought about that.
yeah. I mean, you're right, and you're right on. I remember hearing that quote from Rakim, and you and I talked about that quote, and it the first thing I thought about was his verse on the Easy Meal track. Him and Easy Meal, he was like, "Me being white's been good to me, right?" But let me be clear. It's me being white is not the reason why I'm top five. Like I get that. Like I know I get to be top five, but it's the reason you can't put me at one.
Right.
And I struggle with that because one, I don't believe he's one. I mean, that's my
Well,
personal opinion.
let me tell you what a producer friend said when he and I talked about this quote. Let me see what your response it is. So, Mitty Marks, a producer that I work with a lot, the big producer here in South Carolina, Mitty Mark Productions, if you want to check him out. He said when I told him what I said, Rakim said that Eminem, if he were black, he'd be Muhammad Ali, and Mitty said, If he were black, he'd be Black Thought. And I did the exact same thing you did. I was like, that might be one of the best comparisons I can think of, because even the strongest Eminem fan is not going to be very hard to argue that he's better than Black Thought. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, that's a hard argument to make.
Yeah,
If you're going to try to tell me he's better than Black Thought, that is a hard argument to make.
that's a hard argument. Yeah, that's a hard argument. I'll just say this and end it on this. I believe the competitor, the lyricist in Eminem, believes he's the greatest rapper as far as lyrically. But I believe the student in Eminem understands what greatest of all time is, and he would never put himself there. And we talked about this when we talked about L. We talked about this. Great never put themselves as the greatest. They don't argue that they should be in the conversation. They don't
do all
argue
whack.
their place. I'm
They do all whack. Yeah.
they don't discount that there is a hierarchy and they should be
They don't
higher on the hierarchy.
They don't disrespect the people that they know that are either that are above them.
Right. And so I feel like that he's been so smart about how he goes about his business, because he scorns other rappers who don't, black or white. He scorns other rappers who don't understand. You just come in here making music and you don't know who KRS-One is. You don't know who, you never heard Paid in Full. I remember Vlad interview, or it might even been an LA Leakers interview, and I don't remember the MC, but they were talking to the MC about his project, and he had sampled 2 songs that he didn't even know the producer where the songs came from. Right? The producer used 2 songs that he sampled, and he rapped over them.
Baby and them.
Those are the things that make Eminem different. God, man, that Muhammad Ali is very fitting. That's a very fitting quote. And probably if it came from anybody else, it probably wouldn't have made nearly as much sense and nearly as much impact. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect, but if Weezy would have been like, yo, Eminem's like the Muhammad Ali of hip hop, nobody would have knew what the hell Weezy was talking about. Like, they'd be like, he on that stuff.
Well, you gotta be our age to get this reference, but he's Charles Schwab. Like, when he talks, people listen.
Yeah, facts. But yeah, man, I mean, I feel like solidified is an understatement. But I feel like his place in hip hop, he's one of those that his absence slows down the movement, but from a completely different spectrum than like an LL. Eminem's absence slows down how money works, because you don't get global. Everybody don't go global. Everybody don't go platinum in 14 days. Like, those are feats that few and far in between have ever met. And while we talk about artists, going platinum as a celebration, this man's went diamond couple times, couple albums. It's a huge deal, but it's because of his ability to reach pockets not very many people were able to reach, but now they are. If you don't get a lot of the euros, a lot of the suburbial dollar, so to speak, I would never say hip hop would be, in a struggle bus, but it's not like we're getting a lot of top 40 play. Now that there's Sirius Radio and 13 stations that you can hear hip hop on, but when it just came down to 97 The Beat, 104, those stations, it was hard, man. It was hard. And he was able to get on the 103s and the 99.9s. And even if it was the songs we hate, they were on there, right? So it gave a rotation to another set of artists.
And he was even getting rotation on pop stations. I don't think he necessarily appreciated that, but it was still, it was crossing over. So I guess that leaves us pretty much the same place where we started. Eminem's place in hip hop is, to me, somewhere at the top, but if you ask me to tell you exactly where, I don't know, man. It ain't the top, but other than that, I don't know where to put it. I mean, look, there is nothing wrong with being Larry Bird, okay? If my career is over and they tell me I had a Larry Bird career, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? MJ never beat Larry Bird. I'm just saying. There is nothing wrong with being Larry Bird.
That's perfect, man. That's a great way to get off. That's perfect.
Yeah. Eminem, just let my man be the Larry Bird of hip hop and enjoy it for what it is, y'all.
That's it. Let it be what it be. So,
And that'll do it for us, y'all.
Right there.
And that's it for Books, Rhymes, and Life. Smash that like and subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that championship bell. And y'all have some good holidays coming up.
Books, rhymes, and life.